rain started an hour into our drive and didn't let up. By the time the tire light came on, the highway was a mirror, and my wife's silence was doing that thing silence does, making every bad decision feel louder. Sarah sat rigid in the passenger seat. Behind us, Theo, 8, was half asleep, and Mia, 5, was warm and cranky against her stuffed fox. The car began to shimmy whenever I hit standing water, so I took the next exit and followed a frontage road that felt like it had been forgotten on purpose. A neon sign blinked at the edge of a dark lot. Larchmont Motor Court. The last letters kept dying, so it read like a threat that couldn't finish its sentence. The clerk was a guy in a knit cap with tired eyes. He barely looked at the kids. "One night," I said, "we just need a clean room." He slid a clipboard toward me. "Cash deposit." "Card," Sarah said. He shrugged. "Room 12, no refunds after you open the door." I signed anyway. The key tag was cloudy plastic, scratched to hell, but a tiny blue triangle was stamped in one corner, like a mark from somewhere else. Room 12 smelled like disinfectant losing a fight. 2 beds, thin curtains, a TV bolted to the wall. Sarah didn't sit down. She wiped surfaces like she was trying to erase the whole place. Theo asked, "Are we safe?" "Yeah," I said, too fast. I checked the lock and the window latch. Above the bathroom door was a long vent grill. Everything in the room looked old except the vent screws, bright, new, mismatched, like someone had been in there recently. Then I heard it. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Not the door, not the window, the ceiling. Sarah froze mid-wipe. Theo sat up. Mia stopped complaining and stared upward like she'd heard her name. "It's pipes," I said, even though pipes don't sound patient. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps again. I stepped into the bathroom and tilted my head toward the vent. Warm air breathed out, carrying a faint smell of insulation and cheap cologne. Then a soft drag above us. Fabric on wood, controlled and slow. Sarah whispered, "Don't." "Don't what?" "Pretend this is normal." I went outside and looked up along the roofline. No attic windows, no vents, just a dark strip under the eaves running the whole building, like a crawl space with opinions. Back inside, Sarah was already shoving clothes back into bags. Theo kept asking questions too quickly. Mia clutched her fox and tracked the vent with her eyes. I called the front desk. It rang long enough to feel intentional. "Yeah?" the clerk answered. "We're hearing someone above our room," I said, "in the ceiling, tapping." A pause. "Animals." "Not animals." Another pause, bored. "If you don't like it, leave." Sarah leaned toward the phone. "We have children." He said flat, "Not my problem," and hung up. That wasn't denial, that was confidence. We moved into the car without finishing the argument. Sarah locked the doors the second she sat down. I called emergency services and kept my voice polite, because polite is what you do when you're scared and trying not to sound crazy. "I think someone is in the ceiling space above our motel room," I told the dispatcher. "We have kids. We're in the parking lot." While we waited, the tapping started again, fainter now, farther down the row. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Like it was traveling. A patrol car arrived 20 minutes later. Officer Motto stepped out, young, tired but focused. He listened, nodded once, and said, "Show me." He unlocked room 12 and swept it with a flashlight. "Vent," I pointed, "above the bathroom door." He stood on a chair, loosened the grill, and eased it down. Dust fell in a soft curtain. His light went into the gap. A face flashed into the beam, pale, sweaty, wide eyes. A man flattened in the crawl space with pink insulation stuck to his hair. He pressed one finger to his lips like we were sharing a joke. Officer Matos barked, "Hands now!" The man didn't lift his hands. He slid backward, silent, disappearing into the darkness above the ceiling like he'd done it before. Matos swore and keyed his radio. "Back up. Now. Suspect an attic crawl," he said and told me. "Keep your family locked in the car." 2 more officers came. One posted outside near the roof line. The other carried a camera pole and a bigger light. They moved fast, popping vents, checking empty rooms, trying maintenance doors. A shout came from the far end. Running boots, a brief struggle. Then someone yelled, "Got him!" They dragged a man out through a hatch behind a soda machine. He was older, gray-bearded, shaking, coughing dust. He kept repeating, "I'm just staying warm. I'm not hurting anyone." Officer Matos looked at the man, then at me. "Is that who you saw?" It wasn't. The face in the vent had been younger, sharper, more controlled. "No," I said, "that's not him." Another officer came back from the roof ladder, shaking his head. "No footprints," he said, but his boots were dusty. The clerk insisted he'd checked the attic last week. Matos told me the cameras were out for repairs. Everyone talked like it was contained. Matos's jaw tightened. He looked up at the dark roof line like he didn't want a second suspect, because a second suspect means a second report. On the bathroom floor, under the vent, something new lay in the dust. A torn scrap of green grid paper stuck to insulation. I picked it up. 3-2, always knock polite. In the corner, faint but unmistakable, was the same blue triangle. Officer Matos took the paper from my hand. His voice dropped. "Did you tell anyone your room number tonight?" Before I could answer, the ceiling above us clicked with 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Not in our room. Somewhere else. I never told the kids about the grid paper note. I told them the police found a drifter. We got unlucky. End of story. Sarah didn't believe me, but she also didn't want the real version living in our house. A week later, Officer Matos called once. He asked if I'd noticed any tag numbers on the vent or key. When I said no, he gave me a case number and a promise that sounded like a shrug. After that, time did its job. The trip became a story we joked about in safer lighting, but the rhythm stayed. 3 taps, pause, 2. My brain filed it under important, like a fire alarm that never fully powers down. 14 months later, I was traveling alone for work, rerouted by a snow squall onto a 2-lane that funneled every stranded driver toward the same strip of motels and fast food. I took the first vacancy sign. Copperleaf Lodge. The office window glowed. A woman in her 60s sat behind the counter with reading glasses on a chain. "You're lucky," she said. "One left, room 6. "Just me," I said. She slid the key over, scratched plastic, and in the corner a tiny blue triangle. My stomach went cold. I tried for casual. "You guys part of a chain?" She glanced at it. "No, that's just our key tag." I carried my bag to room 6, feeling stupid and alert at the same time, which is my least favorite combination. The room was cleanish, but the details were wrong. New screws on the bathroom vent, a connecting door with a fresh slide lock, a window latch that looked replaced. I turned on every light, called Sarah, and kept the conversation normal on purpose. "You there yet?" she asked. "Yeah, it's fine," I lied. "Don't do the brave thing," she said softly. "Do the smart thing." "I am," I said, and stared at the vent while I said it. Half an hour later, the first knock came, gentle, measured, then another. A voice through the door, calm like customer service. "Evening. You okay in there?" I didn't answer. I moved to the peephole. A man stood a few feet back in beige coveralls and a navy cap. No tool bag. Hands empty. Face mostly shadow. He tilted his head toward the door like he could hear my pulse. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. I backed away and called the office. "Hello?" the clerk said. "There's a guy at my door," I whispered. "Coveralls. It says he's checking. Is that you?" "No," she said instantly. "I'm here. Stay inside. I'm calling the sheriff." I spoke through the door without opening it. "Hey, wrong room. Please step away." Silence. Then his voice, closer now. "I just need a minute, man. Open up." From farther down the row, a muffled shout. "Leave!" So he wasn't improvising. He had a route. I checked the window. The curtain was thin. The parking lot lights turned it into a glowing screen. I locked the latch anyway and shoved the desk chair under the track like that would matter. A tap hit the glass. Not a knock. Fingertips right at the curtain's edge. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap. I raised my phone and hit record. I didn't pull the curtain. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of my face. The window handle rattled once, then again harder. I spoke loud. "I'm recording. Police are on the way." The rattling stopped for a breath. Then something thin scraped along the frame, probing. Not force, patience. From the bathroom, a soft metallic click, like a screw turning. That did it. I grabbed my wallet, phone, and jacket and left the room with the lights blazing. I didn't go to my car. I went to the office, because offices have people. The clerk met me at the locked door with pepper spray in one hand and the phone in the other. "Behind me," she said. Through the glass, the man's voice floated from the darkness outside, polite again. "Ma'am, it's okay. This guy's having a panic attack." She didn't unlock anything. "Sheriff's coming. Back up." 3 taps on the office window. Pause. 2 taps. Blue and red lights washed the lot 10 minutes later. Deputies searched the rooms, the roof line, the dumpsters. Behind room 6, they found a maintenance hatch hanging open, hinges fresh scraped, like it had been used and forgotten. They didn't find him. They did, however, take my phone and copied the video. The deputy who handled it watched the tapping play back once, then looked at me like he'd just stopped humoring the story. "That pattern mean something to you?" he asked. "It's familiar," I said. He gave a tight nod. "We had another complaint. Same guy, same check-in. Different room." On the drive out the next morning, I found a scrap of green grid paper tucked under my wiper like a receipt. No words this time, just 3-2, and a blue triangle drawn so hard the pen tore the page. Then my inbox held something that made my hands shake. An email from the lodge's corporate office, forwarded to me for the report. Subject: Incident footage requested by sheriff. Attached: a grainy still pulled from a gas station camera across the street. A man in beige coveralls stood beside my window, head angled in. In his left hand was a green grid notebook, and on his cap, right above the brim, was a small blue triangle. 2 days later, a detective called my cell. "Detective Harlan," he said, "I'm looking at your old case number and this new incident. They line up with a pattern near Harborwick." "Pattern?" I asked. "The triangle, the tapping, the polite approach." He lowered his voice. "There's a hotel there tied to a homicide. We think the same person revisits scenes. If you travel and hear crying from an empty room, call me first." That night, a blocked number left a voicemail. Do the smart thing. Harborwick was an old waterfront city that tried to look charming while it decayed. brick alleys, rusted ironwork, salt air that smelled like pennies. My company booked me 3 nights for a conference, and I spent the train ride telling myself I wasn't going to turn every creak into a threat. The shuttle dropped me at the Briaro Hotel, a stone-faced building with dim lobby lights and carpet that looked permanently damp. At check-in, the attendant slid a key sleeve across the counter. Near the barcode was a tiny blue triangle. I forced a smile. "Is that your logo?" "It's for housekeeping," she said. "Inventory marking." Of course. My room was on the 4th floor, facing an interior courtyard that amplified sound. The hallway vents were new metal in old plaster, and the screws on the nearest grill were bright, too bright. I kept my suitcase zipped, shoes on, phone charged. I told myself that counted as rational. At 11:17 p.m., sobbing drifted down the corridor in short bursts, then stopped, then started again. It wasn't through a wall. It was in the open air, like someone trying to stay quiet and failing. I cracked my door. 2 doors down, a paper sign was taped across a peephole. "Out of order." The sobbing came from behind it. I called the front desk. "There's someone crying near an out-of-order room." A calm pause. "Sir, that room is empty." "It's not," I said. "I can hear her." "We'll send security," she replied. "Please stay inside." Security arrived fast. Tall guy, radio on his shoulder, navy jacket. He didn't study the sign, he studied me. "You called?" he asked. "Yeah, it's coming from there." He listened. The sobbing paused like it noticed him, then resumed softer, more controlled. He knocked once. "Hotel staff, you okay?" The crying stopped. He turned, almost relieved. "See? Probably pipes." Then 3 taps sounded from inside the room. Pause. 2 taps. Security's face changed. He tried the handle. Locked. "Master key," he muttered into his radio. Before he finished speaking, something scraped above us, metal on metal, slow and careful. Dust sifted from the ceiling seam over my doorway like someone seasoning the air. Security glanced up, annoyed, until a screw head on the hallway vent rotated a fraction. Then another. Not vibrating. Turning. I raised my phone and zoomed in. A thin screwdriver shaft appeared between the slats, searching for purchase. For half a second I saw knuckles gray with insulation. Then they slid back out. "Hey," I said, voice sharper than I wanted. "He's in the vents. Right now." Security stepped in front of me. "Back up," he snapped, finally sounding like he believed his own job. 3 taps hit the metal grill from inside. Pause. 2 taps. Like it was telling us it could hear every word. The screwdriver returned, faster, as if whoever held it had decided the quiet approach was done. The vent bowed outward a millimeter. I didn't wait for it to open. I backed toward the elevator, phone recording, keeping my body angled so I could run without turning my back. Down the hallway, the stairwell fire door clicked, like it had just been unlatched. I saw a slice of movement. Beige fabric, navy cap. Slip into a service corridor like it belonged. I didn't chase. I stepped backward and walked toward the elevator where the cameras were obvious. I called Detective Harlan. He answered on the second ring. "You're in Harborwick." "I'm at the Briaro," I said. "Empty room is crying. 3-2 tapping. I saw coveralls." His voice went flat. "Stay visible. Lobby, now." The elevator took too long. I took the wide public stairs instead. Halfway down, a door opened above me. Slow footsteps followed, unhurried. That was the worst part. No scramble, no panic, just patience. I hit the lobby and planted myself beside the night clerk under the camera dome. "I need police," I said. "Now." The clerk's hands shook as she grabbed the phone. From the mezzanine railing above, someone leaned out and watched. Navy cap, a blue triangle patch stitched on the front, clean and deliberate. He didn't wave. He just stared like I was supposed to understand, then turned and walked toward a hallway marked staff only. Seconds later, the rear exit buzzer chirped. 3 chirps, pause, 2 chirps, like someone had tripped the door and let it swing. Deputies arrived fast. Security met them with excuses. The night clerk looked sick. Harlan walked in last, coat still on, eyes sharp. He didn't ask me what I'd seen first. "What time did the crying start?" 11:17, I said, showing my call log and the recording. Faint sobs, then the taps. He nodded once. "Good." They went upstairs without me. I caught fragments as people moved through the lobby, an empty room that wasn't supposed to be used, a sealed door, a stolen master key, someone entering and leaving through staff spaces. An hour later, Harlan sat across from me and slid a printed still onto the table. Hotel CCTV, time-stamped 11:19 p.m. A man in beige coveralls stood at the out-of-order door with a key card in his gloved hand. Navy cap. Blue triangle patch. Clear enough to make my stomach flip. "Your call lines up with his entry," Harlan said, tapping the timestamp. "That turns this into a timeline." "So you didn't catch him," I said. "Not tonight," he admitted, "but we tied him to a room, connected to a homicide case. He returns to places he thinks belong to him." I left at dawn with my suitcase still half-packed and a new reflex to look up before I look around. 2 weeks later, a padded envelope showed up at my office with no return address. Inside was a motel key tag, cloudy plastic, scratched to hell, stamped with a tiny blue triangle. I keep it in my desk drawer, and it still smells like dust. Taped to it was torn green grid paper. "Thanks for the timestamp. 3-2, always knock polite."